You're listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and other platforms. Welcome, everybody, to the fourth episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today's topic is 3 different subjects. The first one I will talk about is ADHD affecting the inflection in a voice when talking to a person. The second subject that I will talk about today is communication and context, or as I say, lack of context. And the third topic that I will talk about today is assumptions, assuming that someone knows what I am talking about, knows what I mean and thinking. All right. As always, before I start, I would just like to let everybody who's listening know that this episode is recorded in real time. There is no pausing, no editing. It is run from start to finish. Excuse me. So, first subject, inflection in the voice. I have an issue, and I'm sure some of you have probably already noticed in listening to my first 3 episodes, that I do not have a very good inflection when I am talking to people. Inflection is like, you could say, emphasizing a certain part of the subject that you're talking about or the sentence that you're saying. Here's an example. I went to the market today. It was so busy. The inflection was on the word so. We all know what this is. For those who don't, that's what the inflection is. Now, my problem is that I have a tendency to be very monotone or very, uneventful, not very dramatic, very little emotion in my voice when I speak. So a lot of this can do is basically affects all the areas of my life. It has affected me when I have gone to job interviews. I have sat down with the interviewer, and have spoken to them or to the group of people, and it sounds a lot like I am bored or disinterested or distracted, because a lot of times they'll ask a question like, for example, where do you see yourself in 5 years with this company? And of course I would sit there and think and go, and then I would give an answer. So the answer would be, well, I think I see myself possibly being in management. I do like the management area because I feel that I am a really good leader by action. And I believe that I could be an excellent leader and a really good manager. I like the behind the scenes kind of activity. Now, another person who would get that same question could very well have emphasis on things or certain words in the response that they're giving to the interviewer. My lack of inflection in my voice often will, like I said earlier, give the impression to that person that I may appear bored or very dull or boring or not a very intelligent person. This has been something that I have had, obviously, for most of my life. I have sort of been aware of it, but never really understood exactly what the problem was. I do, on occasion, if I'm really focused and if I'm really enthusiastic or very passionate about the subject that I am talking about, have a tendency to be better at using correct inflection in my voice in certain words in the location to properly reflect the subject. Like, it's easier if I'm interested or if I feel like I want to be doing this. Because as we know, that people with ADHD have a tendency to lose interest very quick in a subject or in a task that they're doing if they really don't feel interested in what they're doing. If they're just kind of like going at it, going, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. Like, for example, children doing their homework, they don't really want to do it, but they just kind of go at it half-assed, and before you know it, they either have stopped and they'll go to something like playing video games or go outside, and they've quickly become bored of doing their homework. Now, for someone like me, who as an artist and a photographer, I really love doing these activities, and therefore I am focused, or as they call it, hyper focused on the actual event that I'm doing. So I can draw for hours, or I can go out to wherever and take photos for all day if I had to. As long as the battery lasts, I can take photos. And I love it. I don't get bored. And I want to stay and complete the task, although the task, seemingly is not ever complete because of the fact that you just do it on and on and on and on. And then before you know it, it's the end of the day and you're thinking to yourself, wow, where did the time go? So, inflection, like anything else with ADHD, for me is a very important thing, something that I'm not aware of when I'm doing it, like a subconscious activity in my mind, and the only people who really know or are aware that I am talking with a lack of inflection in my voice would be people who are around me and are listening to me talk to them. It is something that is difficult to overcome because you're obviously talking in an unconscious way. You don't truly think about how you're talking for the most part because it is a natural thing that people do. We don't go and sit there and say, okay, I am going to talk about birds today. I need to make sure that I say all these words and that I have a certain tone and a certain way of saying it with inflection and enthusiasm and emphasizing on certain parts of the topic that I'm discussing. It just comes naturally. And it's same with people like myself who suffer from ADHD. We have this natural built-in way of doing things and talking about things, or just talking in general. Hence that unconscious ability to talk with very little to no inflection in the voice, no enthusiasm, no emphasizing on certain parts of the subject. Okay, now let's talk about communication and context. As I'm sure all of you know, and even for those who are not aware, people who suffer from ADHD are really not good at communication and can even be worse when it comes to context. I am really poor at delivering correct context to anybody that I talk to. There's so many examples in my life throughout the years where I will be talking to someone and I will say something, for example, I went to the store down the road and I bought that thing. And I talked to her about my idea about going to the store and buying this device, and it's so cool. And then my girlfriend gets upset and gets frustrated and goes, what are you talking about? What thing? What store? Who did you talk to? And of course, I'm going, oh my God, I did it again. I didn't say the subject. I didn't say any of the context. I'm like telling her no names, no store names. I'm not telling her what exactly I'm talking about at all. I don't give her any indication of the idea, of the device that I'm thinking about. In my head, it's there, but the inability of my time and my spent energy trying to tell these people is extremely difficult. Imagine, if you will, going to court all right, and you're being a witness for a murder case, and the lawyer asks you, "So what did you see?" Imagine trying to tell them, "Well, I saw the guy and he had this thing in his hand, and the lady over there, he went up to her and hit her on with it, and she fell down." And the lawyer, and I'm sure all the people in the courtroom are going to go, "What are you talking about? What did he hit her with? Who was it? Where was this? What did you see?" Like, it would basically be like saying a very minimal amount of information when the maximum detail is required. Communication, when you are heightened, basically like going from 0 to 100, or as I'm sure some of you have seen, going from green straight through yellow to red. And what this does is this causes in your mind or in your brain a sudden like fight or flight sort of symptom or episode. And it, for me, what happens when I go to a heightened state is my ability to communicate, to be logical, to express myself, basically to get any words out to the person that I'm talking with is extremely difficult. I'm sure a lot of you have had this problem. You can't communicate anything, let alone the context. And then you struggle to get out one word. You're just sitting there and you're feeling like frustrated, and you're feeling intense, and you're feeling that nervous feeling and that great intensity build up in your body, and you start to get frustrated and you start to go like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And you sit there and you're getting angry and you're getting more heightened, and you feel like you're just going to explode because you have that thought in your head. It's sitting there, it's right on the tip of your tongue, and you're just going, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say." Like, you're making noises, or there's dead silence, and the person across from you is sitting there patiently going, "Yeah, well, yeah. What are you trying to tell me?" In my situation, I get frustrated, and when I'm heightened, I can sometimes say things and do things that can be inappropriate, or it can make zero sense to the person you're talking to. And the thing is because I also suffer from CPTSD, this can cause a trigger from a part because they think that I'm in trouble or I'm in danger now. And so my child parts can take over and can get me into even more trouble. I'll go into that in another episode regarding communication and lack of context, ability to give context to the person. But it's very frustrating because it affects you so much all the time. It can affect you when you're doing your work. It can affect you while you're out, like shopping for something, like if you want to buy a pair of shoes, or you want to buy a dress or pants or a suit, or you're looking at something at the store like an art picture or a painting, or you're looking at furniture, or you're going to find hopefully a brand new car. You're talking to that salesman, or you're talking to your doctor, and I know I have had this problem where you just like, you wonder, how am I able to get this across? I'm having such a difficult time. It feels so difficult, and it just builds up, and that level of intensity and that feeling like your brain just shuts off. And I'm sure a lot of you have had that feeling before. Your brain doesn't want to work. You can't connect the dots. 2 and 2 to you, you don't even know what it could be. It could, in your mind, you think it could be A, it could be exclamation mark, it could be 42, it could be the bowl sitting in front of you. Your mind is so overwhelmed, and your inability to think about what you're saying, to focus on the idea in that context, you end up just getting so frustrated with yourself. And on top of it, as I'm sure you've experienced yourself, you are frustrating the people in your life. You frustrate your parents, you frustrate your loved one, you frustrate your boss or your coworkers because you're trying to communicate to them and it just does not work. You try hard. I know I've tried hard. I've tried so hard, so often to get the words out right the first time. I don't know how many times in my past and even in the recent time since I've recorded my episodes where I have discussed the topic, or like I've got an idea in my head and I want to tell my girlfriend, and I'm saying to her, I want to do this trip. I want to go to this hill down the road. And she has no idea what I'm talking about. So she's standing there and you can feel that frustration starting to build in her voice and the tone's getting a little louder. And she's asking you, what are you talking about? What hill? What road? Like, where are you describing? And I'm like, of course, getting frustrated, right? And I'm going, the hill down the road on 84th Street. And you're not getting anywhere near what she wants you to tell her, because she just wants you to say, oh, it's north on this road near the circle drive, and there's a hill near the school, and it overlooks the city where the lights and the buildings are. If I could just get that across the first time, it would avoid the frustration on her end. It would avoid the frustration coming from my end, the tone increase, the anger, and it would very well avoid a fight. Because I know from personal experience, a lot of times I get heightened because I'm going, oh my God, I can't get my damn subject across. I'm struggling again. And she gets frustrated because she can feel it. And then we end up having a fight. And sometimes we can go on for 10, 20 minutes about it. And of course, by then, with the CPTSD factoring in, I get triggered. And then I'm suffering from a flashback. I'm no longer the adult, and I'm saying things, and I'm lying, and I'm making up stuff, and I'm trying to recover, and I'm having no luck. It really sucks. I honestly wish I could hear from you guys and your experiences. I'd love to know what kind of problems you've occurred in your daily life when it comes to the inability and the difficulty in communicating to your loved ones or to your family or your boss, and having that problem with context, not being able to tell them what the subject of the discussion is, giving them the right nouns, the names of the people. Oh, I have such a hard time with names. Like, I would constantly say, oh, I went to her house, or she told me about the video, and we're gonna go see the movie now. And then someone would go, who's she? Or who is her? Who are you talking about? And I'm going, like I'm building, and I'm going, oh my God, like. And the thing is this is kind of where it leads into assumptions, which I'm going to talk about here shortly. It's just, you get frustrated because you realize that you've made a mistake. You got to repeat yourself. People are looking at you and are potentially thinking that you're stupid or you're a moron or that you're not intelligent. And the fact that they have to ask you right in the middle of what you're talking about to explain yourself, to be further elaborating on what you're discussing, it can be very frustrating, especially when it happens over and over. Even if it's multiple times in the same discussion. I'm sure a lot of you have had that problem. It can be very just nauseating to the point where you just want to walk away, or you freeze, and next thing you know, you can't say anything, or maybe you get emotional. Like, I know there are some people out there who have a hard time regulating their emotion, another ADHD symptom, of course. and it's super frustrating. And before you know it, you could be crying, or you could be getting really angry, or you're pouting, or you're feeling sorry for yourself because once again, I've messed up and I can't say for the life of me what I need to say. And I sound so dumb. It's just ridiculous, right? Like, it's one of these things that can affect our self-confidence. It affects our ability to feel good about ourselves, to feel happy, to feel strong. And the people who you are with recognize this and can feel it too, because there's that hesitancy, you know? It's just the way you need to discuss it. It's very difficult. And I'm sure you've all experienced it many, many times in your life, before and after you were diagnosed with ADHD. How do we deal with this? Well, I have been told you can do things like practice, you can have skits, you can do pretend discussions. A good thing you can do is write down what you want to say. You could put it in bullet form, which, from what I've been told and what I've read, is a really good way of writing down your information that you're trying to get across. And it's really good if you're doing an interview for a job, because it allows you to have the information in front of you rather than trying to remember it in your head. Because, as we're all aware, our working memory is poor and we do have a tendency to forget things. All right, the last one, making assumptions, kind of works into communication. I have a lot of times said something to somebody under the assumption that that person knows what I'm already talking about. They know what I mean, they know what I'm thinking, and the person absolutely has no clue. They don't know. For all they know, you're talking about anything. And so often I have made an assumption that they know I'm going to go to the store, or they know that I'm talking about the football game, or they know that I'm discussing work, or that I'm talking about my dog, or I'm talking about the weather, like all the different possible subjects. You're sitting there and you're going, ugh, come on, you should know this already. It's all because your brain can't connect the two. You communicate to that person and you think to yourself, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I went to the store and I bought that. Remember? And of course they're going, well, what are you talking about? I never remember you telling me anything like this. You didn't say anything. You got to stop assuming that this is what we're talking about. And of course, like everything else, I get frustrated. I get to the point where I'm like getting heightened and I'm going, what? You don't remember? And of course they're going to go, no, I don't remember what you're talking about. We were discussing blah, 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 right? And then so you get a little frustrated, and like my tone can increase because I'm feeling that heightened state and my emotions are kind of boiling and I'm having a hard time regulating it. And you're getting a little flushed and you're feeling intense. That feeling of intensity in your body is building. And of course, it's a habit that's been built throughout your life. I know, like, some of you may not have this problem when it comes to assuming things, but I do have this issue where I assume people know what I'm already talking about. They know the subject ahead of time, that they have remembered something that I told them a month ago or a week ago, and they don't remember. So it's very difficult to remember in the moment, because a lot of times people with ADHD have a very difficult time being present, being in the moment, like being in the now rather than being all over the place, right? We easily get distracted. We easily look over here and see something, and then we're not listening to the person talking to us, or we're not able to focus on the task at hand. And of course, going and doing another task. It all works in to the same thing. So assuming that somebody knows what you're talking about is very like frustrating and very hard to deal with, because you need to have that built-in ability to tell people everything, to not ever assume that they know what your idea is or what you're talking about or the plans that you've made. You always have to be able to tell people everything. You got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to give them the proper context. You got to be thorough. You got to make sure that they're aware of everything that's being said, or that the ideas or the thoughts in your mind. You've built this lack of ability for such a long time that I know you're probably thinking that it's very difficult to just do it. And that's what I've always said for a long time, is it's very difficult to just do what they say. Communicate better. Give more context. Don't assume that I know this already. And they say that to you, like communicate better, say more, be more thorough, inflect the subject in your voice better. Like, let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what you're thinking. And in your mind, you're going, oh, yeah, easy for you to say. You're neurotypical. And the neurodivergents, which are who we are sitting there going, this is not easy. This is not something I can just do. And unless your partner or your wife or husband or your boss or your parents understand ADHD and what it is doing to you, it can cause a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, disbelief. They can think that you're dumb, that you don't know what you're talking about. It's very difficult. I wish it were easy. I wish for you guys it were easy. But we can't always get the easy way, especially with ADHD. We just need to keep working. I recommend practicing. Sit down with your loved one or your parents and literally practice. Do a skit. Pretend. You've got to learn these skills in order to become better at doing these things, better at communicating, better at providing the proper context, and even becoming better at showing the proper inflection in your voice when you're describing something to somebody. You got to be able to show emotion, show the passion. It's difficult. I know. I'm here for you guys. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know. Let's talk. Okay, well, this is it for this episode. Stay tuned next week for episode 5. It's always a pleasure talking to you guys, and I hope that we can get together online, maybe have a chat, maybe do a gathering, have a little online party. Could be a lot of fun. Visit my webpage, go to Twitter. I'm on Facebook. It's Living with ADHD and CPTSD. I am going to create a actual website here soon. I am available on all the major platforms: Google, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the big ones, tune in. I'm all there. So look for me, subscribe, listen to my episodes, let me know what you think, and hopefully someday we'll be able to have an interview, maybe with another person who's dealing with this too. All right, folks, have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye.